Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Ultimate AFL show for season 2016. Now I'm back after a week off. You might remember that I didn't upload an episode last week because I was away. So I'm back this week ready to resume the show for the rest of the 2016 season. Now, in this episode, I'm going to be looking back at round 16 and what was an interesting round with some interesting games. And I'm then going to be looking towards round 17. There's a big clash, a first v second clash happening on Thursday night that we need to talk about. So I'll be talking about that in our round 17 preview. So it's going to be a very big show of the Ultimate AFL show this week. Before I get into round 16, I just want to quickly go through round 15. I was actually away last week and didn't review round 15, so I'm just going to go through the scores in case you don't watch any other news or the news on TV. Then I'm just going to go through the scores just for those people, or if you just want to hear them again. So just for the sake of the show, I'm going to go through the scores. So the first game of round 15 was on Thursday night. It was at Domain Stadium in Perth. The West Coast Eagles won by 78 points, 130 defeating Essendon 52. The Friday night game at Adelaide Oval was between the Power and Richmond. The Power, expected to win this, did just that, 14-10-94 defeating Richmond 8-8-56. The Suns got over the line against the Saints, won by 40 points in a game they really did dominate. It was 15-18-108. The Suns defeated the St Kilda, who was pretty poor in this game, 8-20-68. The Swans and the Dogs, a very interesting game. This one, the Dogs ended up winning by 4 points. Joe Haddison kick with 3 seconds left sealed the game in the Dogs' favour. 11-13-79, the Swans defeated by the Dogs, 13-5-83. The Saturday night game on election night, Carlton lost this game in what was Savani's first game at his club, 6-9-45, defeated by the Magpies 8-9-57. Magpies won by 12 there. And then the final game of round 15 was a standalone Sunday game, Melbourne and Adelaide. Melbourne 15-8-98, defeated by the Crows 18-12-120, and what was a very close Sunday afternoon game. So that is round 15. Let's get stuck in now to round 16, having a look back. Okay, so round 16 kicked off on Thursday night at Adelaide Oval. It was Port Adelaide and Hawthorn. Hawthorn have actually struggled against Port Adelaide, especially last season, and especially at the Adelaide Oval last season. Port Adelaide won pretty comfortably in that game last year. So this could have been a game that went either way. And it was pretty close at the start. Things were pretty fired up in the first quarter. Port Adelaide actually led at quarter time, 3-3 to 3-1 Hawthorn. Now, Hawthorn were able to take the lead by a goal at half-time, 6-4 to 5-4. And then from there, Hawthorn were pretty much able to take the game away from the Power. They led at three-quarter time, 11-10 to 7-4. And then in the end, won the game 15-11, 101, defeating the Power 12-7-79. So Hawthorn, they lost the first quarter, but since then they were able to power through in the second quarter. It was a very close halftime score, but then after the halftime break in the second half, they actually got away from the Power and won the game pretty convincingly. So let's have a look at the goal kickers. Hawthorn's goal kickers, Rioli and Gunston kick 3. Bruce Polopolo, Segler kick 2 each. Sicily, Hill and Burgoyne kick singles each in this game. We then have the Port Adelaide goal kickers. Wingard kicked 3. He had a good game in terms of the scoreboard. Gray, Schultz and Wines, also Armand kicked 2 each. Westhoff kicked a single in the game against the Hawks in what was a game that was played in front of over 43,000 people at the beautiful Adelaide Oval. So it was a very close game to start with. Hawthorn, though, winning the game pretty comfortably. They are still top of the table. We'll see that a bit later on. Friday night, one of the games of the rounds. Going into this round, it was the Cats and the Swans at Simmons Stadium. And the Cats kind of blew off to a bit more favouritism after the Swans lost to the Dogs in round 15. But it still could have been a game that could have went either way. The Swans got off to a rocking start. I'll tell you what, in the first quarter, Kieran Jack kicked the first goal. We know that during the week he was on the front pages in the Sydney newspapers and so forth with the controversy between his girlfriend, his parents, etc. Bizarre kind of news, to be quite honest with you. But he kicked the first goal, made a statement early. The Swans made a statement early because they led at quarter time 4-2 to 3-1. And they really didn't hold back, to be honest. I actually thought they dominated this game quite well, to be honest. They led at half-time 7-4 to 5-1, 11-7 to 7-4 they led at three-quarter time, the Swans. And then in the end, it finished, the final score of the match finished 9-6-60, defeated by the Swans 15-8-93. So a good win there for the Swans. Geelong were pretty woeful, and again they had that patch where they got beaten by the Pies and Carlton. This is the similar patch. They got beat by the St Kilda and also the Swans in the 2 weeks. So they really need to get back on the game in round 17 against Freo. They need a big win. And for the Swans, well, they've got a big game against the Hawks coming up. They're in second place at the moment. It was a good win for them. Saturday, there were 4 games to enjoy, and it all started at Spotless Stadium in Sydney between the Greater Western Sydney Giants and Collingwood. Collingwood coming off a good win against the Blues in round 15. And, well, this was a game that you would have thought the GWS Giants would have won, and it was turning out that way early. They led at quarter time 7-2 to 3-2. They led Collingwood pretty comfortably by a very good lot of goals, let's face it. But funnily enough, Collingwood came back in the second quarter and led at half-time 12-4 to 9-4. High-scoring game, by the way, especially at half-time. The scores there at half-time really showed that it was a very high-scoring game. It didn't settle down in the second half. In fact, Collingwood actually powered away from the Giants, 18-7 to 11-7. They led at three-quarter time, and in the end, they won the game. To everyone's surprise, they've had so many troubles this season, but they've went away from home, gotten Cloak in form, and won the game. The final score, 19-11, 125. Collingwood defeated the GWS Giants away from home, 14-9, 93. It was a good game by them, and I tell you what, if they played that way in the early stages of this season, they probably would be in the top 8. Let's face it. So the goal kickers for the GWS Giants, Cameron did have a big impact on the game, kicking 5, but it didn't get them over the line. Patton kicked 3, Kelly kicked 2, Ward, Shield, Lobb and Johnson kicked singles each for the Giants. The Collingwood goal kickers, as I just mentioned, Cloak had an in-form day. He really was in form. He played his best game of the year. He kicked 4 goals. White kicked 3. Blair kicked 2 as well as Vasolo. Varco, Aish, Adams, Smith, McCaffer, Sinclair, Sidebottom and Grundy kicking singles each in what was a good win by the Pies. The Saturday twilight game was the Q Clash 12, and I was at this game. I was experiencing my first Q Clash and enjoyed it. I thought it was quite good to be at Metricon Stadium seeing the 2 Queensland sides. And, well, the Gold Coast Suns kind of made the game look like it was going to be a bit one-sided. They led at quarter time 6-2 to 2-4, led comfortably at half-time 12-4 to 6-6. The Brisbane Lions kicked a bunch of goals in the third quarter to actually put them within reach, and we really had a game at three-quarter time. It was 17-4 the Gold Coast Suns to Brisbane Lions 12-10. It was all to play for at three-quarter time, and then in the end, actually, though, the Suns won the game pretty comfortably, but it was a very high-scoring game, especially by 2 kind of lower sides who are in the bottom four of the competition. So that was quite surprising. So the Suns won 22-7, 139, defeated the Lions 17-11, 113. The goal kickers, Wright and Lynch, two of the power forwards for the Suns, who are going to be power forwards for them in years to come, kicked 5 each. Matera kicked 3. He had a good game. Davis kicked 2. Ouchie also kicked 2. Sexton kicked 2 as well. Malira, Garlett and Ablett kicked singles each. Ablett, of course, out for the season now, injured himself. Seemed to have reoccurred that shoulder injury that he's been having or something like that in the game, which wasn't very good from anyone's point of view, really, any AFL fan's point of view. I don't think there's many people who hate Gaz. He's a very nice and a very brilliant player, and he doesn't deserve injuries like this. So when he comes back, he probably won't play much in the midfield, I'd say. Forward game for him. Hipwood kicked 4. He was a good goal kicker and a good player for the Lions on the day on Saturday. McStay, Jansen, Andrews, and also Rich kicked 2 each. Bewick, Green, Zorko, Skay, and also Leicester kicked singles each in this game for the Lions in Q Clash 12. Saturday night there were 2 games. One of them was in Melbourne at Etihad Stadium between the Dogs and the Tigers. Very close game this one turned out to be. The Dogs had a 2-point lead at quarter time, 3-3 to 3-1. Richmond had 6-2 to the Dogs, 5-9 at half time. Richmond had a handy lead at three-quarter time, 8-6 to 6-11. The Dogs, however, were able to get basically over the line once again for the second week in a row. They won 12-13, 85, defeating Richmond by 10 points, 11-9, 75. The goal kickers for the Dogs, you had Stringer kicking 4 each. He had a good game. Bontempelli and Redpath kicked 2. Suckling, Smith, Dixon, Johannesson kicked singles each for the Dogs. The Tigers goal kickers, Castagna kicked 2 each. Rewald, Edwards also kicked 2. You then had Griffins, Cochin, Lloyd, Ellis and McBean kicking singles each for the Tigers. A big crowd of over 39,000 attended this game at Etihad Stadium. It was a beauty, and it was very nerve-wracking for a Dogs supporter like me. The final game of Saturday was at TIO Stadium in front of over 8,000 people, which is good from that stadium kind of view in Darwin. It was Melbourne and Fremantle. Melbourne won this pretty comfortably. They led at every change. It was a pretty one-sided game. Freo never really got in reach, and the D's did really well. 12-15, 87, defeating the Dockers 8-7, 55. The goal kickers for the D's, Hogan kicked 4, Watts, Kent kicked 3 each, Vandenberg, Jones kicked singles each, and then the Dockers goal kickers, Pavlich kicked 3, Main kicked 2, Sibin, Tabernar and Ballantyne kicked singles each for the Dockers. So a good win there from a D's point of view. 3 games on Sunday in round 16, and 2 of them were in Melbourne. One of them was at the MCG between the Blues and the Crows, a game that I think we were kind of looking at and saying that maybe it could have been close. It was far from that, though. I thought the Crows did very well in this game. They led at every change, and they got to the MCG and did what they had to do. This was their second game in a row at the MCG and won another one. They entered the top 4 after this win. The final score being Carlton 7-5-47 defeated by the Crows, 16-11, 107. Armfield kicked 4 for the Blues. Casbolt Savani kicking his first goal for the Carlton Blues, and Wright kicking singles each there. You then had the Crows goal kickers. Betts kicked 3. Jenkins and Jacobs also kicked 3. And then you had Crouch, McGovern, Walker, Lynch, Douglas, Lyons, McKay getting on the score sheet with singles. Big clash between the Eagles and North Melbourne turned out to be a very hurtful loss for the Kangaroos. Let's face it. It was quite close at quarter time, 3-2 to 2-1, but the Eagles were able to power on and win this match pretty convincingly, 7-8, 104, defeating North Melbourne 11-6, 72. Starting to get a few problems, the Kangaroos, but I think they could be able to win their next 3 to just keep the lid on a little bit, because at the moment they are dropping points and dropping significantly down the ladder, considering they were at the top of the ladder after 9 straight wins. So they haven't really had the best second half of the season. So the goal kickers for the Eagles: Kennedy kicked 4, Cripps kicked 3, Lacrosse kicked 2 for the Eagles, Gaff, Hearn, Lysette, Yeo, McGinnity, Darling, Maston kicked singles each for the Eagles. You then had the Kangaroos goal kickers. Brown kicked 4, including a very good check side goal. Go onto YouTube and watch that one. It was a fantastic goal. Thomas kicked 2. Gibson, Dermott, Goldstein, Wood and Anderson kicked singles each for the Kangaroos. And what was a disappointing loss for them, the Eagles, they've kind of got themselves a bit up above the ladder now, and they're kind of knocking on the door of a top 4 spot. They could have a good end to the season in this second half, possibly challenge in the finals. The final game of the round was at Etihad Stadium. Good game, this one, between the Bombers and the Saints. It was the Saints leading by a couple of goals at quarter time. They led by a couple of goals again at half time, but it was very close at three-quarter time, 10-10 Essendon to 12-7. So the Saints still led. It went right down to Essendon actually led, by the way. It went right down to the wire. And in the end, the Saints won 17-7, 109, defeating the Bombers 14-14, 98. Danaher marked a spectacular mark. He went right up in the air in what was probably the mark of the year so far. Fantastic mark by him. So good win there by the Saints. Essendon had the chance to win this game, but again, just slipping away at the last minutes. It happened against the Giants. It happened again against the Saints. Fantasia kicked 3 for the Bombers. Levitt kicked 2. McDonald, Tipper, Woody kicked 2 also. Danaher kicked 2. Parrish, Dempsey, Harms, Brown, Merritt kicked singles each for the Bombers. The Saints goal kickers: Memley kicked a massive 5. Weller kicked 2. Stephen Ross, Dunstan, Rewalt, Nunes, Robertson, Armitage, Greasham, Bruce and Michington kicking singles each for the Saints. Okay, let's have a look now at who's leading the stats after round 16. I'll start with the leading goals. Lance Franklin leads the goals on 53, but Kennedy is level with him on the same amount of goals. Third is Lynch on 48. Jenkins in 4th on 43. Eddie Betts in 5th on 41. The Crows have 2 goal kickers in the top 5. Very impressive by a Crows point of view, and also from an AFL point of view as well. You have the leading disposals. Lockie Neal still leads the disposals after round 16 on 492. You then have Patrick Dangerfield second on 469. Third is Dan Hanbury on 467. Lockie Hunter on 4th on 453. 451, rounding out the top 5, is Adam Treloar from Collingwood. Leading marks: Nick Rewalt leads the marks on 141. Heath Shaw is on 125, the next best there. Doherty on 114 in 3rd. Simpson on 4th on 112. And on 109 in 5th, we have Ben Reid from Collingwood. Then finally, the leading tackles: Matt Prittis from West Coast is leading the tackles on 119. You then have Rory Sloane on 115 tackles, Swallow on 113 tackles, Shields in 4th on 112, Curnow rounding out the top 5 on 109. Very close there in the leading tackles. Very, very close. Could go either way in the remaining rounds of season 2016. And then finally the ladder to round off our round 16 review. Hawthorn lead the 2016 Premiership ladder after just 16 rounds of football, on top of the table with 48 points. They've only had 3 losses, and that was against the Giants, the Swans, and I can't think of the other one. I can't think of the other one off the top of my head at the moment, but I think it was, Geelong. That's right, it was Geelong. I was there at that match too, so I just remembered it in time. So there we go. The Sydney Swans on second. After bouncing back to the Cats, they have claimed second place. The Adelaide Crows, very interesting, have rised up to the top 4. Kind of expected it, to be honest, and they've done just that. And the Western Bulldogs have got back into the top 4 and on 4th. You've got the West Coast Eagles, Geelong, GWS and North Melbourne all fighting to get into that top 4. And it's just going to be an absolute close end to season 2016, isn't it? Especially from a top 8 point of view. I don't think anyone from outside the top 8 can really make it now. It is possible, but I just don't think any team outside of the 8 is in best form to be able to get back in there. I just don't think Port Adelaide are in the best form. Their win ratio this year hasn't been great. Melbourne, they've been very improving this year, probably the most improved team of the competition, but I just don't think they're going to get into the top 8. That's not saying bad things about them. It's just where they're at the moment in terms of being able to take it up to those top sides. Collingwood, well, if they win this week, maybe, but yeah, it's going to be very, very hard to make it if you're outside the top 8. Now, in a couple of weeks, we've also got Brisbane and Essendon, of course. They're level on bottom 2 status with 4 points. Interesting game coming up. Not this week, but the next week. Okay, time now to get into round 17. Some big clashes coming up in round 17, I must say. And it starts on Thursday night with the biggest clash of them all. It is the Sydney Swans and Hawthorn, first v second. They have met in a couple of grand finals in the last few years, 2012 and 2014 to be exact. And they're meeting at the SCG. The first time they're meeting at the SCG since 2012, and that was the year they both made the grand final. So you never know. They could be the grand finalists of 2016. It could work out that way. You never quite know. This game, 7:20 p.m. on Thursday night, Thursday the 14th of July. The SCG, as I've mentioned. And the Sydney Swans have won 6 of the 7 matches at the SCG this season. Of course, their only loss at the SCG was recent. It was against the Dogs. So it's going to be a good game, this one. I'm expecting a ripper. I'm going to tip the Swans only because, not only the home factor, but also because of that stat that they haven't played since 2012. So Hawthorn might not know the ground that much, but considering they have a few premiership players in their side, they probably will know the ground. So that's probably a silly excuse, but I'm going to stick with Sydney Swans. I think they can win this one, and it'll be big if they do. Friday night at 8:10 p.m. Australian Eastern Time, Friday the 15th of July, the Fremantle Dockers and Geelong Cats at Domain Stadium in Perth, expecting the Cats to go over there and make a statement. They need to make a statement because I think people are starting to question them a little bit because they have their good days where they play some fantastic football. A few weeks ago against the Dogs was an example of that. And then they have patches. That's happened 2 times this year already. They have patches where they're just woeful. So they need to be playing consistency and consistent football, and that's not what they're doing. So they need to go over here and make a statement. They need to win their next few. They've got some big games coming up. As I have a look at their schedule, they've got the Crows at Simmons Stadium. That will be an interesting one. They should be able to win that one, although the Swans beat them there at Simmons Stadium, so any team could, you would say. The Dogs is going to be a big one at Simmons Stadium, and then they have Essendon at Etihad Stadium. So they really need to win their next 4 to make a big statement, and that's what they'll be trying to do starting from this Friday night. So Freo have won, however, 3 of the last 5 against the Cats, and they won their last one, which was round 3 last year at Simmons Stadium. So that could be something to put into factor, but I think the Cats are going to win easy. Saturday, there are 4 games. It starts the MCG with the Saturday afternoon game. The Tigers and the Bombers. Of course, their recent clash was in round 10, Dreamtime at the G. Richmond won that pretty convincingly, 105-67. And Richmond have won the last 4 against the Essendon Bombers, and they've all been at the MCG. So this is going to be a hard one for the Bombers. You'd think Richmond will win this pretty comfortably, but who knows? We know that Richmond have been struggling this season, so anything could happen. But this game at 1:40 p.m, like I mentioned, at the MCG, Saturday the 16th of July. Twilight game, probably the game of the round maybe for the Saturday. There is a couple of beauties, but this one here, North Melbourne and Port Adelaide. We know North Melbourne have been struggling in the last couple of weeks. They need to turn their form around, and they're up against the Power. So who is, good sometimes, and then the next they're not. So this game at 4:35 p.m. at Etihad Stadium, the Twilight game. If you want to know a stat, in round 3 last season, Port defeated North 113 to 103 in a high-scoring affair. So Port Adelaide defeated North Melbourne the last time they met at Etihad Stadium, which was last year, actually the last time they met. So interesting game if you put that stat in perspective. Now, there's 2 Saturday night games coming up this Saturday night. The first one starting at 7:25 p.m. is in Cairns at Kazali Stadium. The Western Bulldogs and the Gold Coast Suns. Home game for the Dogs. They're playing one game each year for a certain amount of years against, against any team, I suppose, but it has been normally the Suns at Kazali Stadium. So I expect the Dogs to win that, but the Gold Coast Suns, I do expect them to take it up to the Dogs. They have taken it up to teams in the last 5 weeks, and I've seen them twice in the last 3 weeks, and they've been pretty impressive. So, well, not pretty impressive, but they've been taking it up to teams. So that's a good thing from a Gold Coast Suns point of view. But those injuries, Ablett and Riscatelli, not great from their point of view. So that's the first Saturday night game. And the next Saturday night game at 7:40 p.m. Adelaide Oval, the Adelaide Crows and Collingwood. I know Collingwood got a really good win against the Giants, but the Adelaide Crows are a different side. They're good at Adelaide Oval. I think they'll win this one pretty comfortably. And the round finishes off on Sunday with 3 games. Carlton and West Coast Eagles, 1:10 p.m. at the MCG. Of course, the West Coast Eagles have only won away from home once this season. So they're going back on the road in good form. And they're going to the MCG, which they rarely win at. So, from this year, definitely. So, I think they're going to win this game, the Eagles. I think they're in better form travelling. They're in better form they're in good form now. I think they'll travel quite okay. So they've got games at the MCG. I think it's 2 in the next 3 weeks. So they need to start winning there, and they need to kick it off against Carlton. So I think they'll do just that this Sunday. The mid-afternoon game, the mid-Sunday afternoon game is St Kilda and Melbourne, 3:20 p.m. at Etihad Stadium. I think St Kilda will win that one. They were pretty dominant against Melbourne last time at Etihad Stadium. Melbourne struggle on Docklands. So I think St Kilda will win pretty comfortably. Could be a good game though. And then the final game of the round, the Giants will be looking to make a statement on in this game. It is the Lions and the Giants at the Gabba. 4:40 p.m. I'm going to say the Giants will win this pretty easy, especially from what I saw from the Lions last week. But they weren't too bad. They did score over 100 points. And it could be a good game, this one, especially when the Giants lost last week. So that is round 17, a big round. I can't wait for that Thursday night clash. Mouthful. And that is it for this episode of the Ultimate AFL Show. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy round 17. I'll be back with a preview of round 18 next week, as well as looking back at round 17. So until then, I'm Jacob. Enjoy the footy this weekend. Bye for now.